Is the government going to compel you to hand over your phone and your passwords? Let's have a look. Good morning. Welcome to this episode of Heiser Says. Today I'm going to Liberty Fest, or today and tomorrow. I'm recovering from their drinks event last night. I've got my coffee and thought I'd quickly put this video out for you before I head off. So there's an article in the Daily Mail that brings attention to a new bill that's being, or amendments to bills that are being pushed through Parliament. It's to do with warrants, surveillance, getting access to our phones and our data. Now recently in Sydney, there was a gentleman flying in from Europe. The government, or the security officers, took his phone, took his laptop, copied all the data down. And they said, you know, they couldn't give him any guarantees that the data would be destroyed, or that was actually copied. That's scary, because that has implications for his business. It's implications for all of our business. Now, I know we'll hear the standard line, but Florian, if you've got nothing to hide, that's not the point. It's impinging on our freedoms, on our fundamental freedoms to privacy. And I know there's a whole generation that doesn't know what privacy is, but it's something we used to have in the 80s when I grew up. So, people could face up to 5 years in jail if they did not give their laptop, password, or mobile phone PIN to the authorities under proposed changes to the law. So, I've had a brief look at this bill, and I don't think a cop can just come up to you and demand that you give him your password. Well, he can do that, but unless there's a warrant, I'd be shocked if you can go to jail for 5 years for refusing that. Now, it is concerning that they're having to do this. What really worries me is the relationship that the government wants to have with technology providers and our service providers, where they will compromise your devices and your security to allow them access. That scares me more than this 5 years, $60,000, because I don't think many people are going to encounter the implications of that. Most normal people won't. It's the fact that the government want to get these relationships with these organizations that will mean that these businesses will hardwire or hard code weaknesses into their devices or to their software packages, just to make it easier to deal with the BS of the government or ACO knocking on their door. I mean, come on. Who cannot see that happening? And our good politicians here don't realize that this is going to compromise all of their devices as well. And it's not about, well, okay, ACO can come knock on your door, sure, that can happen. What's a greater threat are criminals, hackers, con artists getting access to your data. You walking past and someone connecting to your wireless phone, getting access to a vulnerable backdoor that they know about, because they'll know about it, trust me, and boom, it's all gone. So let's continue with this article. So Home Affairs Minister Peter Dutton introduced the new laws to Parliament, saying they are needed to help police and spies catch criminals who are hiding behind encryption technology. Bum bum bum. But civil libertarians say the changes go too far. The bill is a draconian measure to grant law enforcement authorities unacceptable surveillance powers that invade Australia's civil rights. Do we even have civil rights? Said Liberal Democratic Senator David Leyonhjelm in an email statement to Daily Mail Australia. I gotta have my coffee, guys, I'm hungover. Not really, I'm well behaved. It appears that people who are not even suspected of committing a crime can face a fine of up to $50,000 up to 5 years imprisonment for declining to provide a password to their smartphone, computer, or other electronic device. See, I would like confirmation of that. From my brief look at it, I think they need to have a warrant to allow that. And you would hope that our judges wouldn't just hand out warrants willy-nilly. Or is it like the TV shows where the coppers just ring up the judge and get a warrant straight away? Maybe it is. Maybe I'm being naive. The penalty unit fine is actually more than $50,000, as the value of a penalty unit has recently been increased to $210. If you're not familiar, in these acts and legislations, they don't set out monetary amounts, because the acts, they last hundreds of years. And if they, I read an act a few years ago to do with accommodation on farms and mines, and they had a fine of, if the rooms weren't clean, you'd be fined £5. So, you can see that act is still in force now. So what was meant to be quite a strict punishment back in 1936 isn't anymore these days. So they've got penalty units there, and then they have a separate mechanism for assigning value to the penalty units. It's like if you pretend to be an architect, you'll find so many penalty units when you're not under the Act. Anyone who refuses to help the authorities crack a computer system when ordered will face up to 5 years in jail. If the crime being investigated is terrorism, the penalty for non-compliance is increased to 10 years jail or $126,000. If Parliament passes the bill, tech companies will have to help authorities crack the encryption on users' devices when told to help, or face up to $10 million in fine. Now, from the draft bill, it was voluntary and it had to be negotiated. Okay, but even the fact that they can't... Is anything ever really voluntary when you're dealing with the government? Seriously, they've got the monopoly on the use of force. They've got the monopoly on restricting your personal freedoms. They can lock you up. They can take fine you money or steal money off you as punishment. So, I don't... That's what really has me worried about this. If anyone at the company tells anyone that what they've been told to do, they will face up to 5 years in jail. This gives authorities access to your protected online information in the event of an investigation. So, I've got a 360, Office 360. What's saying that Microsoft won't give all my data away? Yeah, I'm sure they would, to be quite honest. Bastards. They'd probably mine it and put advertisements in it and then give it away. That's it. Make money off ASIO. Under the legislation, foreign countries can also ask Australia's Attorney General for police to access data on your computer to help them investigate law breaking overseas. For the bill to become law, it has to pass through 3 readings in the federal parliament. It is now on the 2nd reading. More than 14,000 submissions of concern about the Telecommunications and Other Legislation Amendments Assistance and Access Bill 2018 have been received. Submissions are open until October 19, so there's still time to have your say. As the Australian government grapples with new technology, challenging law enforcement and national security, lawmakers have passed increasingly tough legislation affecting individuals' rights over the past 5 years. Yes, and I think slowly people will start to become aware of the implications of these changes. Some of the community have become concerned about the risk of the authorities having too much power. Well, yes, that's kind of a big concern. There is another extension of power which goes well beyond what is reasonable and necessary in a democracy, says New South Wales Council of Civil Liberties Vice President Leslie Lynch. This is also reportedly a potential conflict between Australia's legislation and tough new data privacy laws in Europe. A 46-year-old British software developer had his password-protected laptop and phone seized by Australian Border Force officers earlier this year as he travelled through Sydney Airport. The ABF would not say whether any of the files had been copied, but did inspect his devices. So, and he believes that they cracked his laptop and password. And you can find that on Facebook, the footage there. Now, I know people who used to work for the Border Force. One gentleman who was in my networking group, I mentioned him in a video before. We went out drinking to it was the first year of my business. I had a lunch and it finished at 3 a.m. So you can imagine how it went. This guy was literally like this short. He was like a hobbit, little tiny plumber. And we thought he'd left halfway through the night. Turns out he passed out on the toilet in the German club here in Brisbane and fell asleep. Security had to come and get us and take him home. And this is someone I just met from a networking event. So he ended up sleeping on my couch because it was near my house. And those are the type of people that will have access to your phones and your data. Okay, just keep that in mind. Short hobbits that can't hold their alcohol. So let's have a look at some of the draft bill submissions that came in. Now this is from Telstra, and this is their submission to the draft bill. So we're pleased to see the draft bill provides a role for voluntary assistance, and that such voluntary assistance can be via a negotiated agreement. We believe a collaborative and cooperative approach is more likely to result in efficient and timely outcomes for the provision of assistance and for capability development. In the event that agencies and the DCP are not able to reach agreement about assistance or capability development, and it becomes necessary to issue either a TA notice or a TC notice, we believe the DCP should always be allowed to recover its costs in providing assistance. So they're interested or developing the capabilities. So they're interested in the costs. Telstra, hang on, wait. Oh, you can't see their logo. Hang on, let me move it down. Telstra here, our good friends at Telstra, are interested in the costs. They're not interested in our civil liberties. They're not going to protect us. They don't care. They just want to make sure they get paid for it. It's not really that surprising, is it? It just shows you, you know, our leaders in business, the CEOs. I did a video about CEOs against men, and you just listen to the rhetoric coming out of their mouths. How they're better than people, how they need to help women get up, how they believe in all this gender inequality rubbish, and they want to recover their costs. Fantastic. So this here is a section from the bill before Parliament. Can you see it here? They're really boring to read. I will link to all of this in the description below if you have the time, but let's just go through this a little bit here. The Director General of Security, the Director General of the Australian Security Intelligence Services, the Director General of the Australian Signals Directorate, or the Chief Officer of an interception agency may give a technical assistance request to a designated communications provider. So that was the DC and the DCP mentioned by Telstra. A technical assistance request may ask the provider to do acts or things on a voluntary basis, may ask it to be voluntary, or may ask it to be mandatory. You tell me. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you trust these people? I don't. That are directives towards ensuring that the provider is capable of giving certain types of help to the ACO. So this isn't even about giving the help, that they're capable of giving the help. So this is before actual access to it. This is setting up the framework so that access is given without even any issue. Maybe I'm going to read this into much greater detail because I'm going to make a submission. But this little snippet here is enough to worry me. Now, I thought we'd have a look at some other submissions from some normal people. So this is from Daniel Ashton. Now they've allowed, this is for the draft bill, and these people have allowed for it to be publicly made, and I'll link to them if you can have a look. To the current Home Affairs Office, your current proposed Assistance and Access Bill 2018 is trying to introduce obscene powers to the government that goes against normal citizens' rights. Trying to justify it by saying it goes to help catch criminals is rubbish. I agree with you, mate. Good one there. We've got another one here. Dear Minister, I'm writing to register my opposition to the proposed legislation titled the Assistance Access Bill 2018. As a senior developer and software engineer with more than 11 years of experience, the bill concerns me greatly. Here's another one. Dear Minister, the bill would mean that there'll be no security of privacy for Australian citizens communicating digitally. This is unacceptable. So these are normal people responding that are concerned with our privacy, and that's fantastic. We all need to take the time to actually respond to these things because it's non-submission bias. I read an interesting comment on the LDU page the other day about the ABC, and one of the gentlemen was saying how they're only getting survey responses from all the lefties because everyone on the right side of Mao doesn't care or is disengaged. It's the non-response bias that's happening there. So we've got the review. It's currently underway. You've got time until the 12th of Friday. 12 p.m., 12th of October, Friday. So you can make your submissions. Guys, I will link to this below. I encourage everyone to put a submission together. I want to try and get the Liberalists Down Under to put a submission into this. I think we should all work together and put something in as an organisation as well. But, this is our chance to have a say because, frankly, it's getting a bit worrying, isn't it? Well, guys, I need to head. I'm about to leave for Liberty Fest. If you're there and see me, please come and say hello, or at the after party. I can't drink too much. I'm like drinking one beer maybe, or a pot, and having water in case I get the phone call that I have to rush Rachel to hospital. But there's time. There's time. Labor takes hours. Guys, thank you all very much for joining me for this episode. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you all again next time. Bye for now.